Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome back to another film theory reaction, and today's, topic is one that I haven't heard about in a while. This is an emergency alert, and it's about Local 58. And if you don't know what that is, that was like one of the first, analog horror channels. And if I remember correctly, it had something to do with, the moon or something being, an evil eldritch entity or something like that. It was really weird. And then I thought it went pretty much dormant, or was at the very least finished, because the last video for a while was, I guess you could call an alert or something, talking about the channel going digital, because there was a whole thing that, the analog waves were being, tampered with or stuff like that, and that's how, these weird broadcasts were going out. And then when they were going digital, that'd be the end of it. But, yeah, apparently not. So, yeah, I guess again, no idea. I'm not subscribed to the Local 58 channel, so I, don't know any of the stuff that they've put out, if they put out more stuff, which, most likely they have. So, I guess let's just get into this then. So, yeah, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video link to my game theory reaction. And yeah, we'll pull that out of the way. Let's get this thing started then, shall we?
One of the scariest analog horror series on the entire internet has finally returned. Yeah, we've received a new broadcast from Local 58, and the monster we see in it is going to break this series wide open. Be careful, loyal theorists, because it's looking right at you.
Oh no. So it's gone from the moon. Wait, actually, wait a second. Was it the moon that was Local 58? I think it was. But, oh no. They've landed.
Hello Internet, welcome to Film Theory, the show that wants you to go outside and look at that big subscribe button in the sky. Isn't it beautiful? Don't you just want to click it? So, it's been a minute since we've covered a classic analog horror series here on the channel, but thankfully a new episode of Local 58 just dropped on Halloween, so I had to look into it. If you don't know, Local 58 is an analog horror series created by writer and artist Chris Straub. If you're unfamiliar with Straub, you probably do know some of his other work or series that have been influenced by him, like his creepypasta Candle Cove, all about a children's show that only children could see, went mega viral back in 2009 and was actually adapted into a season of the Sci-Fi Channel series Channel Zero. We just love to see online creators getting the success and respect they deserve. Anyway, Local 58 is all about a local broadcast channel named WCLV TV in Mason County, West Virginia. On the surface, it just seems like a fairly typical local TV network airing movies and documentaries and the like, but things get way creepier as you watch. Some of their shows are outright disturbing, while others seem to get hijacked or altered by some unknown force. It's classic horror stuff with really compelling ideas and scares, so much so that it's been a favorite of internet theorists for years now. Matt actually did a couple theories on it ages ago, and tons of work has been done over on the Local 58 subreddit and on websites like GameDetectives.net. Shoutouts to both of those communities, they've been invaluable resources for us. And really, they've both been necessary. Local 58 has one of the deepest mysteries of any analog horror series we've ever covered. But now, with the release of these latest videos, I believe we may have a much better idea of what's going on in this series. Yeah, by diving into a lot of the older writings from its creator and looking at the inspirations behind the new Local 58 videos, we can crack this storyline wide open. Spoiler alert, there's an alternate dimension bleeding into our own, and that could mean the end of the world.
Of course, it's an alternate dimension. Why? If it wasn't bad enough that the moon was an eldritch entity, now there's an alternate dimensions. Why is it always alternate dimensions?
Don't you dare turn that dial, loyal theorists. We're tuning in. So I think the best thing for us to do here is catch everybody up on Local 58 since it's been a few years since we've covered it. Well, long story short, as mentioned above, Local 58 is a series about a local broadcast channel, WCLV TV, located in Mason County, West Virginia. On the surface, it seems like your typical broadcast TV network with movies and documentaries and kids' cartoons, but things quickly turn creepy. Some content aired on Local 58 is disturbing. The station is hijacked by other messages, or programming is altered by some unknown force.
Yeah, I remember
some big examples. In the video, you are on the fastest available route. We see a dash cam of a driver that's lured into the woods by a glitching GPS before encountering some sort of monster. In Show for Children, we see an
Right, I
animated
forgot
skeleton
about
come
the
across
monster
several
part.
open graves with monstrous bodies inside before he himself dies. While in Contingency, we see a public service announcement instructing viewers to, unalive themselves. Some of the videos also call out phone numbers and
Just say, kill themselves. I mean, the whole, it's like unalive thing. Something about it just rubs me the wrong way. I'm just going to be completely honest there.
websites leading to an ARG which built upon these creepy mysteries. But a running theme we noticed throughout the entire series was the moon. Sometimes the moon is depicted as a creepy monster looking over the earth and ends up killing that previously described cute cartoon skeleton. In others, viewers are encouraged to look outside and up at the moon, though we hear screaming in the distance suggesting that it isn't a pleasant experience.
Yeah.
Finally, we see that the moon seems to be some giant, living, breathing entity. There's straight up what looks like organic material inside of it, and also it looks like a giant skeletal monster. One video also called The Moon, His Throne, suggesting that this entity is living inside of the moon and using it to watch over the Earth. Matt and other theorists I've seen here around YouTube suggested that Local 58 was an alien invasion story, though Stroud seemingly debunked this. That being said, there does seem to be some sort of interdimensional Lovecraftian energy going on here, which seems like it's really splitting hairs with the term alien, but hey, who am I to judge?
Yeah, well, granted, the whole, eldritch entity thing in the moon, it's one of those things that I really did like, because when you look at it and compare, our moon to all the other moons, in the solar system, it is kind of weird. For one, it is, one of the biggest moons in the solar system. If not the biggest, actually. Let me double check that. Okay, yeah, never mind. I was wrong on that front. But the moon still is, one of the biggest moons in the solar system when compared to its orbiting planet. And then there's the whole thing where we only ever see the one side of it from Earth, where it's rotating on its axis just at the right speed, so that it's always facing us. Which, if you think about it for a little too long, could be seen as a little creepy and artificial. So, there's a lot of just weird little, things about the moon that you could take in, any number of directions when you involve horror.
Like I said above, that's a super abridged version of the story we've deciphered so far, so please go watch our previous theories if you want a more thorough explanation. But the real reason we're here today is to talk about the new content. And
what is it? I haven't seen it yet!
Theory, there have been 2 main videos released on the Local 58 channel. So let's cover them one by one and then see where they sit in our overarching narrative. The first of these is called Close, and though it's rather lengthy, there actually isn't a ton to recap on this one. Close shows footage from a SARO mission, that's the Space and Aeronautics Regulatory Oversight, this universe's version of NASA, sending a probe to an asteroid named Eidolon as it passes close to Earth. This asteroid is particularly famous in universe because it vaguely resembles a skull when viewed from certain angles. A celestial body that looks like a skeleton. Doesn't that sound familiar?
Oh god, wait a second. I think I did see this one, actually. Was this the one where there was some sort of weird portal or something on there or something?
Also, Eidolon is a word meaning idealized person, like someone you might want to put on a throne. Just food for thought there. Regardless,
yeah.
Most of the video is just footage from the mission and information about both the asteroid and the lander being sent towards it. However, as the probe gets closer, the footage starts getting glitchy and we see a door on the asteroid. Yeah, straight up a door, like one you'd see in your house.
Not a portal,
the video
but
feed gets
a door.
super choppy before the lander makes contact, but the door then opens, revealing organic material inside of the asteroid, similar to what we've seen on the moon. Then, an unseen force throws the lander back out into space. Cut to black, cue the end of the video.
Get off my lawn!
Again, interesting choices made here if the creator's trying to lean away from that whole alien angle, but, whatever. So,
yeah.
There's a lot going on here that we should talk about, but the thing that really jumped out at me first, other than the whole door on the asteroid thing, was the discussion about seeing the skull or face in the asteroid. The video tries to make it clear that this is just a scientific coincidence. It just so happens that when light hits Eidolon at the right angle, it looks like a skull.
Just like that, the whole thing with that face on Mars. It was a combination of, light hitting it at the right angle at the right time of day and just the low resolution of the cameras. I think, what was it, a couple years ago or something, they took a picture of that same rock again, and it doesn't at like around the same time of day, and doesn't look like a face.
This is a real-world phenomenon known as pareidolia, which is the human instinct to see patterns where there are none. This is especially true for faces. We humans just love seeing faces in everything, from clouds to houses to fruit. But this actually goes one level deeper for us here in the context of this Local 58 video. Yeah, pareidolia in celestial objects is incredibly common. The most famous or infamous example of this is the face on Mars. If you don't know, when we first imaged the surface of Mars with probes, a region of the planet known as Cydonia exploded in pop culture because of one particular mountain that looked like a human face. Conspiracy theorists took this and immediately ran with it as proof of extraterrestrial life and intelligence on Mars. This was surely a giant statue from an ancient civilization, right? Well, not so. Further images of the location showed the same mountain with different lighting, and believe it or not, but it was just a regular mountain. The sun was just hitting the rock at the right angle, and we took the picture at the right time to make it look like a face. But all that being said, given Local 58's history of taking real conspiracy theories and using them as inspirations for its lore, that seems to be the same thing that's happening here, that this Eidolon asteroid actually is evidence of some sort of ancient Lovecraftian entity or civilization, one that made something inside of this asteroid.
Which, okay, just as a side note again, you gotta love the whole juxtaposition here. So here you have, like asteroid that looks vaguely like a skull, with its interior being fleshy and organic looking, and yet for some reason just stuck in the side of it is like a normal household wooden door. I love this it's like the juxtaposition of three completely distinct things that do not mesh in the slightest. I absolutely love it.
Really lines up well with what we've seen from the rest of the series with the whole moon entity, doesn't it? It could also line up with other conspiracy theories about asteroids and meteorites. Particularly, the one I'm thinking about is from 2017, when the first interstellar object that we've ever detected passed through the solar system. This was an asteroid named Oumuamua, and from our best guess, this thing was, well, it was just plain weird. Seriously, there are entire 30-plus minute documentaries here on YouTube about this thing, but what you need to know for our purposes here today, Oumuamua came from outside of the solar system, approached the inner solar system between the Earth and the Sun, slingshotted around our star, and then left the solar system. But you know what was really weird? It got faster and faster as it left. That is not supposed to happen, and though there are some potential natural explanations, we're not exactly sure how or why it did that. Conspiracy theorists, of course, jumped on this and threw out some wild speculation, like maybe this thing was an alien probe that came to check in on our solar system before leaving to report back to its alien overlords. Maybe that's why it sped up as it left. It was using some sort of propellant to leave the solar system. Honestly, to me, in the real world, that science seems like a bit of a stretch, but that could have been the inspiration for something similar happening here with Eidolon and Local 58.
Again, the whole thing is, slingshotting around stars and planets is a thing. And it might have been just some really weird slingshotting that we've never seen before. Who knows?
There do seem to be some legitimate otherworldly entities on board this thing since they threw the lander off of the asteroid. So maybe this is some sort of scout keeping a watchful eye on the Earth and the rest of the solar system as the invasion continues. The skull face is even facing towards us, looking at Earth. It just makes sense. The second video is Nightwalk, a documentary in the style of an old Twilight Zone or Unsolved Mysteries episode about local urban legends. This one covers The Woman in Profile, a mysterious ghost story first reported in 1961 when police were investigating the murder of a student at the local Maple Grove University in Icker Falls, West Virginia. Witnesses described a woman in the university courtyard staring intently into the sky, but she faded back into the shadows and disappeared when approached. Since this point, there have been over 24 sightings in the area, and curiously, she has only ever been seen in profile.
Didn't Gravity Falls make a joke about this in one of their shorts or something?
Sure, he looks normal, but if he's so normal, explain why he's always facing left. Literally, I've been following him around for weeks, and I've never once seen the right side of his face. And neither has anyone else. But why?
And when he eventually did manage to flip him around, it turned out the guy was a one-sided I don't know what you call like a walker or spaceship manned by these little tiny green aliens or something like that.
Be the, What the? Guys!
It was just so weird.
The one child who saw the woman believed that she was still watching him during their encounter, saying, quote, "The lady can see me even though I'm not up there." It's creepy stuff, and there's a good reason for that. Towards the end of the video, we suddenly cut to some found footage of a camcorder taken on November 24th, 1996. That's almost 35 years after the woman in profile's first appearance. Here, we see the woman in profile against a sunset, but if you look closely, you'll see that the back of her head looks like another face. However, as the tape goes on, a flashlight crosses the woman, and it's revealed not to be a woman at all. Instead, it's some sort of creature. Its head only looks like it's looking to the side, but in actuality, it's looking directly ahead, directly at you. We then see the text, "A predator cannot differentiate between prey and accomplice," flash on screen as the video ends.
Wait, a predator cannot differentiate between prey and accomplice. Is that talking about that thing or us? Because I know, if you go back far enough, humans were predators. But is that... oh, no.
So, okay, that was also a lot. Where do we even start breaking this one down? Well, the first thing I wanted to call out was the use of the phrase, "A predator cannot differentiate between prey and accomplice." This is actually not the first time this text has shown up in the Local 58 series. It was found in earlier videos and in the ARG, and we believed that it was pointing towards the monster in the moon. There is clearly some sort of cult following this entity, but in the end, the entity will not be able to tell the difference between its followers and the rest of humanity, between its accomplices and its prey. So right off the bat, that's building a connection between this woman in profile creature and the entity inside of the moon, and that isn't the only connection here. Everyone who has sighted the woman in profile consistently believes that she's looking up at something, so much so that witnesses often follow her gaze upwards to see what she's looking at. As we've already talked about in the Local 58 universe, looking up in the sky is potentially very dangerous, since the moon seems to have some sort of psychological impact on anyone that stares at it. Could this creature known as the woman in profile be trying to trick humans into looking up into the sky at the moon?
Oh god, so it's like some sort of weird mimic creature. Oh, and again, so it can look like it's looking up into the sky while looking directly at you. Ugh. Oh, no.
So, though it's not directly related, one of the newspaper articles we see in the video mentions a mine collapse where many of the workers there died. We're briefly given a list of casualties, including several people named Mooney. Just an interesting factoid and yet another connection with the moon. This monster is clearly connected to all of the cults and creatures and predators associated with the moon. Oh, and also, this is a very small thing, but I think it's worth pointing out that prey and predators actually have an evolutionary distinction between them. Generally, animals that are prey have evolved to have eyes on the sides of their head, giving them a wider field of vision to spot potential threats.
Yeah.
Conversely, predators often evolve to have eyes on the front of their head so they can better focus on their targets.
Though, for us, it was a bit of both. Because for us, since, we evolved from, ancient great apes and stuff like that, also, forward-facing eyes also helps with depth perception, specifically when, you're jumping from trees. The whole, us becoming hunters later on is kind of like a side effect or byproduct from that. Gotta love persistence hunting.
Isn't it then interesting that this woman in profile seems to have evolved to make people think it's looking to the side, putting them at ease because it isn't looking at them, but in reality, it's actually staring directly at them. A predator evolved to make its prey think it's not a threat. It's just a great little detail. So that's a surface level analysis of these videos, but what more can we find if we dig just a little deeper? Is there anything else in here that tells us about Local 58 as a whole series, a whole universe? Well, that isn't a rhetorical question, loyal theorists, because the answer is absolutely yes. One thing that really stuck out to me was that the Nightwalk episode called Mason County, the location where this entire series takes place in,
home to what some call the most haunted cities in America.
Basically, ghost stories have been a part of the culture here since the area's settlement by missionaries centuries ago. So, I wondered, is Mason County a real place? And if so, is there any real-world lore we could dig into to try to connect any dots here?
Say
And
yes,
boy, oh boy,
isn't it?
loyal theorists, we hit the jackpot with this one. See, Mason County is a real place, and the real-world Mason County is actually home to one of the most famous cryptid stories in American history.
The Moth Man,
Between
right.
November 15th, 1966 and December 15th, 1967, the
Oh god, in this universe, the Mothman actually is real, and he was caused by the moon.
residents of Point Pleasant, West Virginia in Mason County reported sightings of a flying creature with glowing eyes that would become known as the Moth Man. This ranged from gravediggers claiming that it flew over their heads while doing their job, to young people reporting that their car was chased by the creature, to the Mothman flying over the local Silver Bridge that spanned the Ohio River. That bridge would eventually collapse on December 15th, 1967, sadly killing 46 people. After this, sightings of the Mothman stopped in the area, though other people across the world have claimed to see the creature in more recent decades, the most notable of which was in Russia before the 1999 Moscow apartment bombings. Because of the bridge collapse and the apartment bombings, people have often associated the Mothman with omens of disaster. God, as someone with a genuine passion for cryptids and cryptozoology, I freaking love the Mothman. Anyway, the fact that the Mothman started appearing at roughly the same time as the woman in profile and in the exact same part of the United States cannot be a coincidence. That is a very specific time frame and a very specific place, down to the same county. That's more than just a little inspiration, and why I believe we can learn a lot about the monsters here in Local 58 from the extended Mothman legend. And that might help us crack exactly what's going on here in this series. For example, the Mothman folklore is often paired with another urban legend of a mysterious man named Indrid Cold. This was an uncanny-looking man with a freakish smile that appeared around the same time and place as the Mothman in West Virginia. The prominent belief amongst conspiracy theorists was that he was some sort of man in black, or some sort of alien or extra-dimensional being in human form. Again, that would fit with a lot of the themes present here in Local 58, of humanity being infiltrated by these otherworldly beings. So, what else can we find here in that Mothman legend? Well, one of the more popular interpretations of the folklore comes from the Mothman prophecies. This was a book profiling the sightings that was later adapted into a movie with the same name. This version of the creature was said to be a being from another dimension that manifested into our reality. What if something similar is going on here in Local 58? It borrows so much from this folklore already, it's not a stretch to suggest that the inspiration went that far too. And what's more, it also wouldn't be the first time that Straub has played with that idea in his writings. In one of his earlier works called The Hirsch Camera, Straub describes a mysterious camera at a museum in Acre Falls, West Virginia, which used a unique process to create color photography. On display with it are 12 pictures, including a local town square, natural environments, and a girl who isn't looking at the camera. Huh, doesn't that sound familiar? A coincidence, I'm sure.
No.
But here's the thing. All of the pictures do not line up with historical record or other photographs of the same time. Instead, they depict buildings that never existed, trees with human hands at the ends of their branches, people crawling on all fours, or a man with a grossly distorted head. If I were to take a guess here, my interpretation of what's going on is that whatever process this inventor used to create this camera isn't taking pictures of our world. Instead, it's taking pictures of the same time and place from another world. Another dimension. What if that
Oh god, taking pictures of another dimension. Man, also reminds me of the weird, like, window viewer that they used in Fringe for looking into the other dimension. And at the same time, if this story actually is canon, can you imagine if that was the whole, I don't, not crux, but that was like this, like the incident that caused everything? Like, those little pictures being, just taking snapshots into an alternate reality were enough to just poke holes in like the void or the fabric between dimensions, and since then it's just been degrading and the holes growing larger and larger. Ugh. Oh god, the simplicity in it all.
Dimension here is what we're seeing bleed over here into the real world in Local 58. What if all of the weird happenings and the broadcasts getting hijacked and the moon looking weird and the woman in profile are all from this alternate dimension? Now, you might think that, wait, this is a completely different thing that Straub wrote. Can we really connect it to this ongoing Local 58 story?
I mean, again, it's an earlier piece of work, but I mean, there's no telling. He might have just, essentially scrapped it for parts and used it, to flesh out his current project.
That is fair to point out, but Straub is an author who has gone out of his way to connect all of his works before. Remember at the top of the episode when I talked about Candle Cove, that creepypasta that Straub wrote back in the day that was so popular and influential that was adapted into a Sci-Fi Channel series? Well, that creepypasta mentions that Candle Cove aired on Channel 58, and Straub has confirmed that this is the same channel as Local 58. Its official name, WCLV TV, is even a reference to Candle Cove. So it's entirely reasonable to assume that other works like the Hirsch camera could also be connected too. And even more importantly for us, the Hirsch camera and all of its photography was created in Icker Falls, a fictional location created by Straub and one of the towns directly serviced by Local 58. All of the paranormal...
Icker Falls? What kind of name is that? Because, Icker is basically like blood, or like the pus from a wound, basically. Like, who would want to live in a town named after that?
Normal happenings we see here in Local 58 are because of some crossover with an alternate dimension, maybe the same one described here in the camera's story. And honestly, that would explain so much. If the entities are from another dimension, that may explain why Straub insists they aren't aliens, they're dimension hoppers.
Okay, so basically he's pulling the same card as that they did in, Indiana Jones in the Curse of the Crystal Skull. They're not aliens, they're from an alternate dimension.
That could also explain why the woman in profile creature is able to disappear so easily. It's fading into the shadows, out of this world and back into its own dimension. It could explain why people the world over aren't freaking out all the time over the moon if it has a giant skeleton in it.
It's the other universe's moon.
Maybe you just have to be in a very specific place like Mason County, West Virginia to even see it. But if you do, it's certainly seen you too, and that could be the end of you. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. Up.
So, I don't know whether, interdimensional tampering or, invasions or what have you are better or worse than the moon just plain being like an eldritch entity. Because on the one hand, if the moon itself is always an eldritch, then, everybody's in danger. But at the same time, it's always been there, so there's the chance that we could try to, stay a little longer. But if it's like an invasion from another universe, that's only, like, seemingly, affecting, like, one, like, county in one state of the United States. Like, granted, it's not as widespread, but at the same time, it's a lot more unexpected. I don't know. It's weird. So, again, like, I was under the impression that Local 58 was done. Like, it had finished, everything was done. But if it's still going to continue, then, here's to finding out, what happens next, because at the moment, this could go literally anywhere. But, so yeah, that'll be it for now. So, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video lead to my game theory reaction. And yeah, with all that out of the way, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.